Welcome to the Two Guys in a Cooler channel. Today we're going to be making the Polish kielbasa Krakowska, also known as the Krakow sausage from Krakow, Poland. This is a fun sausage to make because it incorporates several different preparation techniques, as you'll see in this video. And funny little story, during the quarantine, I had a Russian news agency reach out to me wanting to feature the Two Guys in a Cooler channel demonstrating how to make the Krakow sausage for the Russian people. We'll get into that later. But for now, let me show you how to prepare the Krakow sausage. We're going to start with some lean pork. I'm going to be using ham in this recipe for this particular cut, and the ham comes from the back hind leg of the pig. If you can't get your hands on any ham, any lean cut will work. The loin is another great cut, and you're going to want to cut these into 1-inch by 2-inch chunks, just like that. Then once you're done with cutting up your lean pork, go ahead and grab the next piece of meat, which is going to be the pork shoulder. We want a cut that's got a lot of connective tissue. The pork shoulder is great for this recipe. This is also known as the Boston butt. You can get it at your local butcher. And we're just going to cut that up into small cubes. We're going to be grinding this particular portion later, so it's important that we keep each cut separate. So once we have our Boston butt, or our pork shoulder, cut up into small cubes, it's now time to grab the third portion of this recipe. And we're going to be taking the fattier part of the pork shoulder and some lean beef. In this case, I'm using eye of round. And we're just going to cut that up into small cubes as well. And there we go. So now we have 3 stacks. That's our lean pork on the right. We have our pork shoulder in the middle. And then we have our fatty pork shoulder with our lean beef on the left. It's now time to cure the meat. So we're going to take our fatty pork shoulder and our lean beef, and we're going to apply our salt and our cure. We're going to make sure that all the salt that we added is well incorporated into the meat, and once it is, leaving no salt behind, we're going to add all that meat into a vacuum seal bag. I'm going to set that to the side, and we're now going to go ahead and cure our pork shoulder. With the pork shoulder that we cut into small cubes, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to add our salt and our cure, mix it well to combine, ensuring that no salt is left behind. Once we get it well mixed, we're going to place that into a vacuum seal bag. If you don't have a vacuum seal bag, you can place this into a Ziploc bag. Just try to get as much air out of it. Now, as you've probably guessed, it's time to cure our lean pork. We're adding our salt and our cure to the large chunks of lean pork. We're going to mix that well till all the salt is combined, place that into a vacuum seal bag or a Ziploc bag, and set it to the side. By now, you should have 3 separate bags. We have our lean ham in one, our pork shoulder, which is that one, and then we have our fatty pork shoulder with our lean beef in the third one. All 3 of those, vacuum sealed, are going to go in the fridge, and they're going to cure for about 5 days. After 5 days, we're going to remove it from the fridge, and we still want to keep everything separate. So I'm keeping everything in its own row because we're going to process each one of those meats differently. The first thing we're going to do is grind on a coarse plate the pork shoulder that we cut into small chunks. Once you're finished, add the coarse ground pork shoulder to the large chunks of lean pork, and that's exactly what this is going to look like. Let's set that to the side and grind our final portion of meat, which is our fatty pork shoulder and our lean beef. We're going to grind that on a 3mm plate, and you want to make sure that your meat is properly chilled. Once we grind it, let's emulsify it. This farce meat that we're going to be making here is going to act like a glue for the Krakow sausage. We've already cured it, so there's no need to add salt or any cures at this step. Our meat is incredibly cold, and the blades on our food processor are incredibly sharp, which are critical requirements in achieving a good emulsion and a good texture. We're going to begin by adding a little bit of ice while our meat is being chopped. That's just going to keep the temperature in the low 40s. And after about 30 seconds of chopping, we're basically extracting protein through this process. We're going to finish up by adding the rest of our spices to our farce meat. Don't worry, you can find a link for this recipe in the description box below. Now we're going to continue chopping until everything is well incorporated and we have a smooth meat batter. This process only took about another 60 seconds, but by the time it's all finished, your meat batter, your farce meat, should have a relatively smooth consistency, and there should be no discernible difference between the fat and the protein. If you were to touch it, it would feel relatively dense. If it feels like a mousse, that means too much air has been whipped into it, and it's just going to give you the wrong type of texture. So once we have our emulsified farce, we're going to set that to the side, and we're going to finish by processing the rest of our meat. In a mixing bowl, we're going to add our lean pork chunks and our coarsely ground pork shoulder. We're going to mix this on a low speed until our mixture becomes sticky. Our meat is very cold, and during this process, we're going to be extracting protein, and this is also going to help everything bind together very well. When you can grab a little handful of the coarsely ground pork meat and it sticks to your hand when you turn it upside down, this particular step is now finished. It's now time to mix everything together. We've got our lean pork, our coarsely ground pork meat, and our emulsified farce, and we want to make sure to mix this well. We want to really incorporate that emulsified meat into the other ingredients. This is going to be the part that kind of binds everything together. So your meat is going to be incredibly sticky, and that's exactly what you're looking for. This is what it should look like by the time you are finished mixing. Very well incorporated. All of the pieces have come together, and now it's time to put it into a casing. Now, I'm going to be using a 3-inch 76mm casing from the sausage maker, and all we're going to do is soak it in some lukewarm water for about 15 to 20 minutes. Because we're using such large chunks of pork in this recipe, I'm not going to be using a sausage stuffer. We're just going to manually fill this 3-inch casing, and then I'm going to twist it to tighten it up. In the air pockets that are formed, we're going to use a sausage pricker to get them out. Our sausage has been stuffed. This is what our Krakow sausage now looks like, and it's ready to begin the cooking process. The first step is to cold smoke it. So we're going to be placing this into our Smokin' It smoker, and I'm going to be using the Bella's cold smoke generator to cold smoke this. This thing delivers true cold smoke under 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's exactly what we're looking for. As far as the wood goes, we're going to be using pecan chips and apple pellets for a nice mild flavor, and we're going to cold smoke this for 2 hours. After 2 hours of cold smoking, it's now time to actually cook our Krakow sausage, and technically we can just cook it in our smoker, but I find the best way to cook this particular sausage is in a water bath. So we're going to crank up our sous vide and cook this in a water bath for a couple of hours. This is going to do a couple of things. First and foremost, you have regulated temperature, and it's going to cook your Krakow sausage very evenly. It's also going to lock in the moisture. It's going to give you a really nice, juicy, tender bite every time. And we're going to set this to 145 degrees Fahrenheit and cook it for a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours. It really depends on the diameter that you choose to use when making this sausage. As soon as it's done, we're going to cool it in some ice water. That's going to shock it, stop the cooking process, and our Krakow sausage is officially finished. Allowing this sausage to hang out in the refrigerator overnight will help develop its flavors. And I got to tell you, as I'm peeling back this casing, it smells delightful. Smoky, hammy, the slice is smooth, and the center cut is brilliant. You can really make out the different cuts of meat in this sausage. On the meat slicer, I wanted to slice it as thin as I possibly could, and it sliced absolutely perfect. The emulsified element of this particular sausage really holds everything together. And here is our Krakow sausage. And now, the moment of truth. What does it taste like? Well, before we taste it, let me just say, this sausage is amazing. It requires proper planning, as this sausage can't be made in one day. It also incorporates several different sausage making techniques, as well as several different cooking styles. The end result is a sausage unlike anything you've ever had. You've got lean meat, coarsely ground meat, bound together perfectly by an emulsified farce, giving you a wonderful combination of textures and the flavor. Well, delicious. Hammy, smoky, tender, and perfectly cooked. I hope you get a chance to make this absolutely delicious Krakow sausage. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you're new to the channel, we'd like to say welcome. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see and you want to see more of it, click that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can be notified of all future uploads. If you got anything out of this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share it. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.